Have you ever needed a word, been sure that you have it right here in your mouth, in your head, and still nothing? This frustration is exactly what this video is about. It is one of the most common problems I see in intermediate learners. You understand English quite well, you can read, you can listen, you can follow conversations, but when you want to speak, words just don't come out. And very often, the problem is not that you don't know the words. You do have enough vocabulary, but you haven't been trained to use it. I remember this very clearly from my own learning journey. I was learning the words, doing the exercises, studying, doing all the things I was supposed to be doing, and something was missing. I was still feeling frustrated. I knew the words, they were right there in my mouth, but when the moment came, I couldn't speak. And then sometimes it was even worse. I knew the word, but couldn't really build a sentence around it. I knew that was the word I needed to use, but I didn't know how to use it in a sentence. Now, if that sounds familiar, that doesn't mean your English is bad, but it means your vocabulary hasn't been trained for speaking yet. You see, what happens when you read or listen, your brain recognizes the words, recognizes the patterns, but speaking is different. When you speak, you have to remember the words, remember the pronunciation, think about the grammar, choose the structure. It's a lot. All of it out loud in real time. Normally, during a conversation, you don't have time to think about what to say, how to say, the words, the grammar, prepositions, pronunciation. It becomes too overwhelming and your brain forgets the words. And the words that are not familiar in your mouth, the words that you theoretically know, but don't really use when speaking, they just don't come out. Because those words, they live in your head, but not in your mouth. And this is why many learners of English understand well, but feel limited when it comes to speaking. And the most common mistake I see is that learners, they see a word, they read it, they say, okay, I understand. They repeat a sentence or two, and then they move on. Now, one repetition is not exposure. It's not training, it's not practice, it's nothing. Your brain forgets. Without training, without repetition, the word stays passive. And you recognize it, but you don't really know how to use it. Let me give you a quick example. Let's take the phrase end up. It means the final result, something unexpected, like this is what happened at the end and we didn't really plan for it. For example, I ended up working late. That means that was not really the plan. I thought I would finish earlier, but something happened and unexpectedly, I ended up working late. Or we ended up choosing the cheaper option, right? Again, we didn't really know. We were hesitating between 2, 3, several options, but in the end, we ended up choosing the cheaper option. Or she ended up feeling disappointed. Again, right? She was hoping for a different result, but she ended up feeling disappointed. Now, I want you to say these sentences with me. I ended up working late. I ended up working late. We ended up choosing the cheaper option. We ended up choosing the cheaper option. She ended up feeling disappointed. She ended up feeling disappointed. And this is where people stop. They believe they're done learning the words. But for this phrase, end up, to come out naturally when you speak, it needs more repetition, more sentences, and it needs to come back another day. Vocabulary becomes usable through repetition over time, not through collecting words and compiling lists. And this is exactly what we do in Word Rounds. The videos are about 3 minutes long, which is long enough to practice speaking and repeat a couple of times without feeling overwhelmed. And they're also short enough for days when you don't really have much time to practice, when you are too busy for a full study session, but you still want to use and practice your English. And they're more targeted than my usual shadowing reels on my account. We focus on one word, one meaning, and we train that word in context. If that makes sense to you, I will put all the details in the description. Thank you for watching and see you around.